So, power creep has been the heated topics on the last few days for the most unnecessary reason. And as a long-time gacha game player, I'm not only just made a lot of good pooling decisions to combat power creeping, I also made a lot of good business decisions in real life, like opening a restaurant in the middle of the desert and expect people to come, and open a blockbuster when pretty much everyone are already using the internet, including your grandma, and thanks God, people here don't know a thing about Netflix and Disney Plus. So yeah, I do think I'm adequate enough to tell you what is the right way to pull for the characters. But seriously, even though I made contents about Zenless Zone Zero, I've never made any top up yet. I only bought monthly and battle pass and skipped numerous amounts of characters that is criminal to skip at the time, which I'm not gonna tell you who did I skip, but hey, you could ask me when I'm streaming on both Twitch and YouTube in the upcoming days and maybe just chill out with me. So I do think that I could give a more relatable advice as compared to other content creators. So people has been discussing about the power creeping, especially in the Honkai Star Rail, about the HP sponge, and so many characters became underpowered so rapidly. Acheron, Silverwolf were being a really good examples of this, and for the Genshin is the Muvika, where you need to pull for other characters to pair with her in order for her to work optimally in the baseline level, specifically Shilonin and the Citali, and her best in slot team is literally playing with both of them, making her a really restrictive character, but also so powerful that makes every other team irrelevant. And for Zenless Zone Zero, it's not only just Miyabi to the Allen Joe, but Miyabi to pretty much all the characters in the game, whether you like it or not. Power creeping, whether it happens gradually or rapidly, is the nature of the gacha game. But hey, we got to play it for free. But we are not here to talk about power creeping in the moral perspective. We are gonna talk about how we're gonna handle the power creep as a player. And it's definitely not flying yourself to the MiHoYo HQ, lifting the pitchfork, demanding them to do something about it, or else we're gonna start cutting the onions and make Starway cry even harder. And the answer is on the thumbnail, which is to just skip more, because as the game progresses, the characters are bound to be stronger and stronger than the previous one. So the more I save for the pools for the future characters, the more value that I'm gonna get, which is probably the most boring way to approach the game. So as soon as you see the characters that you really like, just go for it. Instant gratification is not a bad thing in gacha game. You have already won the game by just having fun with the game, because gaming is really about having fun in the end. You could take a photo all days in the Zenless Zone Zero if you want, and nobody could take away the joy that you are having. But of course, there's more nuance when it comes to pulling for your favorite agents. You also want to pull for other agents that works well with your favorite characters. Like for examples, the obvious one would be Miyabi and Yanagi duo, Qingyi and Zhuyuan duo, and maybe the upcoming Astra Yao and the Evelyn duo, for them to synergize in the team. And I think that is the middle ground that everybody agree with when it comes to pulling for waifu versus meta. And pulling for mindscape is also not a bad strategy to keep your favorite characters relevant by just brute forcing the content when the content is not favorable to your favorite characters. But generally, I would only recommend most of you out there to pull for mindscape on the rerun, because you would have a better chance to not get overwhelmed by the hype, and you might gonna change your mind at that time. Or maybe the content and the meta just shifted into the direction that you are not expected. It's just a safer way to pull for mindscape in general. Of course, I'm saying this out of being a low spender. Just a side note, for the Miyabi Yanagi duo, you really want Yanagi's signature weapon before going for mindscape 2 Miyabi to improve Miyabi performance significantly, because more anomaly builds up means more disorder. Therefore, Miyabi is gonna be stronger. And I will make a guide again on Yanagi's rerun. And no, you don't need to S rank this critical node 7 every single time. You could already get majority majority of the polychrom by just clearing the critical node 6. The critical node 7 is there to mess with your ego so that you have the urge to pull for the current banner, since critical node were intentionally designed to be as favorable to the current banner as possible. And you only need 2 good teams to get all the polychrom in the assault mode. And for anyone who is calling you stupid for not pulling the meta characters, they are not your friend, and you're certainly not an insecure billionaire with an ego of a high schooler like the Elon Cringe Lord mask, hiring someone to boost his account so that he could brag to the boomers that he's the god of gaming. There are just so many other aspects of the game that you could enjoy other than the hardcore and the endgame aspects of it, like the story, the vibe, and the gameplay. If you really want to go for like full competitive, you could have just played League of Legends or any other competitive game. And more often than not, if you're not able to clear the endgame content, it's definitely not because you are stupid and greedy, but it's the gaming company that's trying to be greedy by setting the bar even higher to incentivize you to pull for more characters. And I think most of the time it has to do with your luck. And by luck, I'm not talking about winning 50-50 all the time. I'm talking about the choice of the characters that you are pulling. I'm gonna show you guys 2 of my Honkai Star Rail accounts because Zenless Zone Zero is relatively a new game and Honkai Star Rail has been out for a while sharing very similar patterns of releasing characters. My main account is basically a low spender account, while my alt account is completely free to play, and somehow my free to play account outperformed my main account, because the content happens to be more favorable to my free-to-play account, because my free-to-play account is intended to have completely different kinds of team comp to my main account, and it is heavily invested into a kinds of team that calls the dot and the follow-up attacks, which enable me to clear all the content, while my main account is heavily invested into Acheron Hyper Carry, which my Silver Wolf and Acheron are Eidolon 2, which is equivalent to the mindscape 2. And I refuse to pull for Zhao Qiu, which is the characters that synergize with Acheron really well, and is designed to pair with Acheron, even though my main account could clear the Memory of Chaos just fine, which is equivalent to the Shiyu Defense Critical Node, and could clear the Apocalyptic Shadow. But I have the hardest time to clear the Pure Fiction, ducking at 10 out of 12 star, or 11 out of 12 star, up until I get Lingsha, which is highly favorable to the Pure Fiction, and my free-to-play account has no issue to clear Pure Fiction at all. To put it into perspective, Pure Fiction is the content revolving around clearing multi-waves of trash mob. Well, to be fair, if I pull for this Fox guide, I would have much easier time clearing the Pure Fiction, but I really would like to not to pull for a guy on my casual account on the game that meant to be casual for me. And speaking of unit like Acheron and Silver Wolf, they were in the same exact position with the Miyabi right now, which is a must-pull unit. They were literally the strongest characters at the time, and no soul could predict that they would fall off. Like Silver Wolf is becoming almost irrelevant at this point, while Acheron getting dethroned by Fireflies within 2 patches, which is still the strongest DPS in the Honkai Star Rail, and now she kind of stuck at tier 0.5, and I couldn't see the scenario that could prevent this from happening, because nobody could predict the future of the content. So that's why your poor decision would also play a major factors on your luck. So you really don't want to stress out when you couldn't clear the content at the moment, and it's probably not your fault. So let's talk about the meta versus waifu with Genshin, which I've been playing about more than a year after the release of Honkai Star Rail. And yes, you heard it right, I play Honkai Star Rail before Genshin and thinking that I'm gonna delete Genshin after like 2 weeks, and now I'm ended up here playing it on my 2nd year, and I could see myself play it for like another year, and I'm actually having more fun with Genshin more than Honkai Star Rail for now, if I were to be totally honest, because I still have so many content to catch up with. And I think starting a gacha game late also has a pretty unique advantage, is that you could decide your pool based on the guide online, and that would make your pools more efficient than the older players player who couldn't see the game from the hindsight like you do. And I think you could also have similar advantages by just skipping more, because obviously you would be more knowledgeable about the game better than you are right now. And with these advantages and actively looking for the guide online, I could still 36 star the Abyss even I start the Genshin late. If you have been playing Genshin for a while with the functional frontal lobe, you would quickly figure out that the strongest unit right now is Nuvolet and recently the Muika. But I've been skipping Nuvolet for like all the time cause I figured that I don't want to play beautiful men who could ejaculate powerful beams of liquid into the enemies. I would rather see Hu Tao doing cute things to the enemy while I'm struggling to clear the endgame content with a big smile on my face. And for the same reason, on this Shilonin banner, which is the strongest support in Genshin at the moment, I still choose Chiori over Shilonin along with her copies and also her signature weapon. I would rather have a Constellation 1 Chiori over a Shilonin and a Chiori, which is probably the stupidest decision in the pool value perspective, because Chiori is a character that is at the verge of getting irrelevant, by the way. So obviously I pick her for the waifu, the vibe, as she passed the vibe check. And I think this is the price that you have to pay when you are playing off-meta characters. Like, you gotta grind for a better gear, getting more copies like the mindscape, and getting the signature weapon. And you also have to learn deeper about these characters to overcome the lack of power levels. Like, what is the right stat, what is the right team comp, and practice the rotation. But I also think this is the fun of playing off-meta. You get to figure out your own stuff. Like, if you actually play Genshin, you will soon realize that something is wrong with my Hu Tao team. I shouldn't be using Mona at here. I should be using Xingqiu instead. But no matter how I test it, my C1 Mona just outperformed my fully built Xingqiu. And it's due to the characteristics of the crunch attacks, which you basic attack less, while Xingqiu's main sources of DPS is coming from the frequency of the basic attacks to enable his damage. Is something that you wouldn't find on any guide, and is something that belonged to myself. So I hope this videos would help you make better pool decision in terms of having fun. And see you guys.